Hi guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Happy Chirp. Today I have with me Fatima Mazhar, who I am very personally inspired by. She has done some amazing work and has had a lot of success in her career. She's actually one of the people who joined Careem very early on and made it what it is at the moment. She launched Careem in Pakistan and several other countries. She's also worked at COLABS and now she's working at Circles. Her journey is incredible. Her hard work is unparalleled. And on this podcast, we haven't just talked about her career, we've also talked about women in the workplace, women in sports, body positivity, and a lot of other themes that have come out of her life. We've also talked about growing up as the sibling of an autistic child. So it was all, there's a lot in the podcast. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of thoughts. And I feel like, it's one of the most raw and real conversations we've had here. So stick around and listen to the whole thing. I think it's going to be incredible for you. Before we begin, I also want to add that I'm not feeling entirely well. So if I'm not able to perform and, I'm not feeling the best, so please excuse me for that. But all focus on Fatima, and her story is incredible. Without any more delay, here's Fatima. Hi Fatima, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. So excited to be here.
Yeah, so
finally.
Yes, I've been wanting to do this with you, but वो coordinate नहीं हो रहा था. You were here, I was
Not
there.
as much as I've wanted it, trust me. I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for doing this with me.
Of course. It's a pleasure.
I'm very excited. I'm very honored to have you here. So there's a lot of themes, that we discussed before starting the podcast that we will be digging into when we have this conversation. But I would, just like to start with your journey and where it all began. So I would like for you to tell me, where were you born and raised?
Okay, that's a really interesting question because I was born in Lahore, but because my dad was in the military, I moved around every 2 years. So, cities like Bahawalpur, Bhimber, Gujranwala, Quetta, I've lived all over. So that's been my life. I am what they call an army brat, which is what we're called, the children of army people. Yeah. At the time when my dad was in the army and we grew up, our army was an amazing organization, and I think that I have a lot to thank about to the army about the constant move, and it will kind of then translate into what my career looked like because I can't stay still. So I've lived in a lot of different places over the years.
Yeah, this is something I can relate to because my father was also in the army.
Oh, I did not know that. So
yeah.
what's the weirdest place you've stayed in that people wouldn't know about?
So in KL, Kashmir.
Oh, nice. I was somewhere, but I was in Azad Kashmir.
Yeah. So I was there, and so that's different.
It is different.
Yeah, I relate. I moved every 2 years.
Yes.
And things in the army were very different at that time.
Back then, yes.
Yeah, it was a lovely institution, and I really enjoyed the cantonment life and making new friends everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when I look at some of the other people that lived in Lahore and that lived in Lahore all their lives and have friends way back then, it's really difficult to keep in touch with your army friends. So I don't have many friends that I've known for a very long time, but then that also makes it easier for me to connect with people wherever I go because we had to do it every 2 years. There was no choice.
Yeah, so this, you kind of become, how to make friends quickly. You become very adaptable, you can fit in anywhere.
And you learn how not to be attached because, there's a goodbye involved every 2 years.
That's true. Yeah.
Maybe that's where my commitment issues come from. That's just a joke. Maybe that's what I can tell my parents now.
And what about your schooling? So did you go to army public school, or did you go into different private schools?
I went into Beacon House wherever I could, and if there was not a Beacon House, then army public. But Beacon House has done a pretty phenomenal job of being in very remote areas as well. So I think my childhood after grade 2 or 3 was all Beacon House.
This is also the same for me because Beacon House was everywhere.
It was everywhere, and they had really good. I don't know about it now, but back then Beacon House had really good education.
Yeah. So for me it was like, we found Beacon House almost everywhere.
Yes.
So everywhere we used to move. Beacon House की एक branch होती थी, वहाँ पे हमारा admission हो जाता था.
Yeah. And this podcast is not sponsored by Beacon House.
Yes. Okay. So growing up, what is it that you aspired to be, wanted to be? बड़े होके क्या बनना चाहती थी आप?
I mean, things were very different, so there was no pressure at that time. I mean, very rarely did we get asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. But I do remember, as far back as I can think, I think pilot was one of it. Doctor was one of it, till I saw somebody bleed and I said, that's something I can never do. And honestly speaking, I still don't know what I want to be, because that is such a difficult question. And I think if I can end up being described as a kind person that was nice to others, I would have done well in life.
Yeah. So it's not as much about,
what I've done, but who I am.
But who I am. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
I like how.
But it took me years to reach that conclusion. I'm pretty aged now, so that comes with experience. But there were different times when, pilot sounded cool. There was a time when, because my dad was in the ISI and I was studying in the States, I wanted to be a CIA or an FBI operative, never thinking that my dad's in the ISI, how am I going to get there? But I did go and apply and pass their physical tests.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes, but then they did a background check on me and said, get out of our country.
That's not possible.
Yes.
Yeah. So what did you end up going for your bachelor's in, or doing your higher education in?
So I went for business management. When I was younger, I wasn't that good at school, so my parents put me in the convent, and there was no sciences available in the convent. It was only arts. So I was pretty limited in what I was able to do, but also that would be an excuse, because whenever I tried to do sciences, I did not do well, or I did not excel. I tell this to everyone so that they understand that you can always turn your life around. I went to the convent, and they had limited subjects to choose from, and at that time it was junior Cambridge, not even O-levels. And then for A-levels I went for like economics, accounting and math, thinking that I was that smart, and I ended up getting 3Ds. So it took a long while to change my life around, but I was limited. I did know that business at that time was something that you did if you weren't a doctor or an engineer, and so I did it. I feel like people are have such an advantage now, because they wanted, we didn't have the kind of counseling, we didn't have the kind of pressure, and because I was a girl, they just said, put her in anything, eventually she's going to graduate and get married anyway. Boy, did I prove them wrong.
Yeah, okay.
So business management and international relations.
And where did you do that from?
I went to a college called Washington College. It was the first private college of the US, and the story is really funny. My dad's dentist's brother-in-law was a dean there, and he came and he looked at my transcripts from NUST, and he said she could get a scholarship if she applies. And we all thought he was joking, so I just applied. And I got a scholarship. So I transferred to that school.
Okay, so first you went to NUST, and then from NUST you transferred.
I was in NUST for 2 semesters.
Yeah.
And when I applied, actually my dad was also moving out of the country, so he said, if you want to. Before that, it wasn't an option, but because he was moving, he was like, you can apply if you want to. And I did, and I, got in with a scholarship. Because again, back then, the standard of education, I don't know how it is right now, in Pakistan was very high. So I studied for 2 semesters in NUST, and I was able to take credits for 2 years. So I was able to do my bachelor's in 2 years in the US based on the 1 year of credits that I did at NUST, which were very, very tough.
Ah, that's incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
So much to be proud of in our country.
Yeah, that's true. I think that higher education has to be one of them. You know,
Yes.
even in OA levels, like they say that our students do
Really
much
well.
better, and
Yes.
they know much more. When they
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like even
Some positives.
Yeah, some positives.
Yeah.
So then you went there all by yourself, right? So your family wasn't with you?
No, so my brother went to Georgia Tech.
Okay.
Clearly he's the smart one in the family. And I went there. My parents went to Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so
They were posted to Saudi Arabia.
he got posted there with the army.
Yeah, as a defense attaché.
Okay, yeah. So and then how was that experience?
I think my first year in the US was very, very tough. There was a big culture shock. There was the ability to connect with people was very easy, but Pakistan spoils you in how friends are, and Pakistan spoils you in this in the lovely security blanket that you have as your friends. Once you're friends with somebody, you do everything yourselves. It's not like that in college at all. Everyone's out there for themselves. You don't go to the same classes, so meeting up with your friends is difficult. So I spent the first year feeling very lonely, but luckily I'd always preferred sports. So I got into the rugby team and I got into the equestrian team. So I made a really good bond with people, and I was really busy. I would get up early in the morning to ride. I would go for rugby practice in the evening, and then there was school. And I also opted to do a job while I was there because, when you were sent from here, and at that time, there was no awareness of how little money that was being sent was there. So I worked, I played 2 sports, and I studied really hard.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I just wanted to keep myself busy. I was very attached to family. I wasn't so excited about going to the States. I wanted to stay in Pakistan by myself, which wasn't possible. And so at that point in time, I was very shy, timid, still able to make friends, but I didn't party at all during college. That came later in Dubai. But so I was a bit different.
So you started working there, so that would have to be your first job.
Yes.
And was it an odd job, or was it like a job?
So the first job that I did was calling people, alumni, and asking them for funds for the college. And I didn't quite enjoy that. And that became the basis of me always saying no to sales, because everyone's told me if I went into sales, I'd kill it. But I really had a hard time asking for money. I even have a hard time asking my dad for money when I was younger, so this was hard. The second job that I did was very interesting. It was catering, and it paid more than minimum wage, and that meant that you would go to different places and you'd serve the food, or you'd serve this, and I think it really humbles you because over here we have everything done for us. So I think if I got humbled, grounded, it was looking at how hard people had to work. I couldn't do it. It was a very demanding job, and with my schedule, I couldn't do it. So I eventually ended up in the library, which was a very good job. To be at the front desk of the library, you got to study, and you didn't have a lot of disturbance, and it paid good money as well. So I ended up staying at the library for the next 2 years.
Oh, 2 years. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for the entire time, basically, after
entire time, it was good money because it meant that you had some money on the side, and international students were only allowed a certain amount of time to work, and that was a good job to do.
That was a good
but I did try catering and then calling alumni. Tough.
And I feel, like you said, it really humbles you, especially the catering thing, because in Pakistan we have a lot of you can say opinions attached to the work that people do,
yes,
right?
We do.
So if you're a waiter, or if you're a janitor or plumber or electrician,
even a receptionist,
yeah, it's very different. You
treat them differently.
Yeah, you treat them different, and then there's certain people who do certain kinds of jobs and certain people who don't do certain kind of jobs.
That's very true. Yeah. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. So or in places like in the West, that generally isn't there, right? Everybody is treated kind of equally. Is that true?
They are.
All kinds of people do odd jobs there. यहाँ पर तो concept ही नहीं है odd jobs का, right?
At a certain age, I think in college and stuff, and then you kind of see who's working the taxis and who's working at the McDonald's. But to start off with, I had a lot of people that worked with me that came from all sorts of families that were doing the job. And catering wasn't easy because you had to pick up the food and then you had to dispose of the food and wash the plates as well. That was part of like the catering job. And till this day, when I have to do something, when I'm living by myself or living with a few friends, I'll say, okay, I'll do the dishes, you guys do the rest, because I don't know how to cook. So,
but
it's therapeutic. It taught me.
And then you moved back?
So what I did was I did my undergrad. The reason why Washington College was such a good choice was they had an amazing study abroad program. So it's not well known. So I was able to go one semester to London School of Economics through Washington College, and you had to be a certain grade to qualify to go there, and I was very lucky that I made the grade. And then for the next semester, I was able to go to Turkey, and they have Boğaziçi University, which is their top university.
Okay.
I studied there for a semester.
Okay.
So I did this for 2 years, and I got into a master's program, and I got into a master's program that was known for security and intel studies, where I was telling you I was interested. I went for my master's because I was having a conversation with my parents, and I said, maybe I should take a gap year work. And my parents said, they will deny it now, but the idea was that I do my master's, come back and get married. But I learned a lot in the States to understand that. And then I did apply for jobs. I got a job, but I didn't get an H-1B visa.
Okay.
So I moved to Dubai.
Okay, you moved to Dubai. Why did you move to
So my family had moved. After my father retired, he moved to Dubai, and he said, "Why don't you come to Dubai?" My brother also, both of us were denied H-1B visas, which was very sad because we'd spent, I'd spent about 4 years in the States, and he'd spent 4 years as well. And we worked and we paid taxes, and we were normal citizens. But it's the luck of the draw. And at that point in time, both of us weren't able to get an H-1B. So we ended up in Dubai, which kind of changed my life for the better. So I see it's all God's planning.
Yeah, it was all God's plan. It happened for the best.
It happened for the best.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there was you, your brother, and your sister, right? You were
Yes.
3 siblings?
We're 3 siblings. I have a lovely brother. I wish everyone had a brother like him.
That's really sweet.
I know he's my best friend, and I can talk to him about everything. We weren't this close growing up, but as we grew up, we did. I have a sister who's autistic. The facilities in Pakistan aren't great, so it took us till she was 5 to understand that she was on, and she's not even only autistic. She's autistic and she has a combination. So that condition is called Perry syndrome, which we found out when we moved to Saudi, where the doctors did extra research. And in Pakistan, we didn't know.
So she's your younger sister?
She's my younger sister.
Okay.
She is, I don't think I could love anyone as much as her, and I don't think anyone could come close to as much. And I think everything that I do and everything that I want to be is for her.
That's really sweet.
And she doesn't know it, but the law of nature is one day maybe your parents won't be around. So I want to make sure that if that day ever comes, God forbid, that I'm there for her 100%. And so she is the purpose of my life as I see it. Yeah.
So you said that she has Perry syndrome, right? Can you...
I can't really explain it, but her brain stopped developing at the age of 5. So she's 5 years old in her brain in a grown person's body. She is verbal and she can say certain words, but she can't. But physically, she's able to do everything. So she can walk, she can run. Sometimes she's on steroids for her mood control. So she is a bit on the fatter side, but she's very smart. So if you say something to her and she wants to do it, she'll understand it in a jiffy. And if she doesn't, she'll just pretend like she
doesn't get it.
But she can communicate whatever she wants.
Okay.
She's learned those words. They're not perfectly said. Some are very perfectly said. But we don't have facilities in Pakistan to do speech therapy back then. We didn't have facilities to treat her. So Dubai was good, where we went and we made sure. She was one of the reasons why my parents decided to move abroad, and they lived in Dubai for 17 years.
Yeah. So in Dubai, you did find that support for your sister.
Yes. And in Dubai, people don't stare. And in Dubai, people don't ask questions. I think some of the weirdest questions... I don't usually get angry because I see that people are different, but so people ask. But somebody came up to my mom at airport and asked, ये ऐसे ही पैदा हुई थी या पैदा होने के बाद ऐसी हुई थी? And it's ridiculous.
Oh my God. Yeah, it is.
And I think I don't even blame people because there's such a lack of awareness. When you have special needs kids, you're hiding them. I take her to all the restaurants that I go to. She goes to Nabila's with me to get her nails and hair done, and the way the Nabila's team treats her is incredible. So there are some amazing people out there. I'm also trying to get her to go to the gym with me. I go too early in the morning, so she can't, but I've told my mom that I want to. She goes to the riding school with me. She doesn't want to get on a horse, but she loves the polo arena. And people there are very understanding. But I think that had I not brought her, the first few times that I brought her, people had a lot of questions. And so I'm not ashamed of her. Other people are, so they hide them. And I think that shouldn't be the case.
That's right.
But if I can take her out to these places and I can generate awareness on autism, on special needs, that would make me very happy. And I'm grateful that she lets me do that.
Okay, I want to understand that, now you're all grown up, right?
Yes.
But growing up with, an autistic sibling, what was that like? And also, just kind of finding that out and then growing up with an autistic sibling, what was that like for you?
So since she was born, I loved her so much that I think I was too young when we figured out what she had. I think it was a bit harder in certain places where, people would at that time make fun of her or something. But it took some words from the Quran and some words from other people saying that. I will never forget, this guy said to me that God only gives special needs kids to people that he loves and then they become really fortunate. And I really feel like all of us are doing so well, my whole family, my brother, myself. And I think it's because we love her so much that in return, what she's given us is God's blessings. And I really think that everything that we have is because God is giving us through her. So once you understand that, and even if it's not that, once you know that special needs is not their fault, it's not who they want to be, then you get a lot more sympathetic. I've seen, although people be more sympathetic to their pets than they are to special needs kids, and that really annoys me. Somehow, I compare that a pet's understanding and a special need person's understanding is the same. So if they're being loud or if they're being difficult, it's because they can't communicate. I've always been very defensive of her. So I think how I've gotten better is I don't react. I do remember punching somebody when I was much younger. They said, your sister's goongi. So I smacked her and I said, now your nose is broken. It wasn't broken. The punch wasn't that hard. But,
So that's what I wanted to understand, because siblings, they get to see all of that, on behalf of their siblings, you can say, when they have siblings who are special needs, they have to feel and face a lot of things, because people will come and say things to them or bully them. And it's very hard because you love your sibling, and having to hear these things, it can be very difficult.
But first of all, we were in cantonments. So people were kinder. And the ones that weren't, very early on, I decided, so this girl that I
punched.
I'm sorry if you're watching this. This girl that I punched, after that, my, mother and father sat me down and they had a word with me. I think you'd be surprised to know it wasn't people outside that hurt as much as people inside the family. And there are people that I will never talk to in my family for the words that they said and the way they treated her. So you think that strangers are going to be there? There's snakes in your own family that are going to be there. Women snakes in your own family that are going to go to say all sorts of things, which rate from Fatima, you're never going to get married because you have to look after her, and who will accept you with the sister? Or there's some other comments that I'd rather not say because they would be painful to hear. But you learn to live with it. And I think that I'd been bullied in high school, all-girls school, convent. I'm not very fond of girls, I'll tell you that. And so you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think that I give a lot of credit to my mother. She taught us not to be battami, so I didn't answer a lot. But now if anyone were to say anything, they'd have to hear a lot. But the family members that did not love her as much or said things about her are definitely cut off in my mind. And no matter how much they try to reach out to me, they won't. But there were other family members that went over and above. So that's really nice. And my friends were really nice. My brother's friends were really nice to my sister. So I think Allah blessed us with some good people.
Yeah. So when you moved to Dubai, back with your family, we'll talk about your career now. We'll get into your career. But before that, so you had spent some time 6 years in America, lived a very independent life. So moving in back with your family, what was that like? Did it suddenly feel like, oh, I was so independent, and suddenly you didn't feel like that, or not?
So I'm very lucky with the mother that I have.
Okay.
Mashallah. She is the kind that says that, okay, if you are going somewhere and you're not telling me, I'm not even going to ask you. It's your responsibility to tell me. I think my father was more difficult when my father was traveling. So I pretty much had an independent house. My mother did say that you treat the apartment as a
hotel room,
bed and breakfast. But because we were in Dubai was very safe. And I was working in investment banking. My brother was working in PE. We had crazy hours. And so both of us had crazy hours. So it was not that big of a problem. And I'd always been a mommy and daddy's girl. I loved staying at home. I've moved back to Pakistan after all these years. I will tell you that in the middle, it did get difficult. I think that once I started being more independent, wanting to stay out more, that's when I decided that I was going to move out of my parents' house. And I did for 2 years and came crawling right back because one, it wasn't worth it. I think that was a mistake. I'll regret for the rest of my life. And I also think that it's such a waste of money. I think that when the people in West make fun of us, I always say, you know what? We don't have to take student loans. We don't have to take on debt. We can start our life easy. And your parents are going to be gone one day. Would you rather live alone and see them twice a year, or would you be able to see them every day, even if it's for a short period of time? And if your parents... And I don't think girls have such a hard time with the parents anyway. I think it's boys who have a harder time moving back in. And till now, I think my dad was away right now I had somebody over at my place and my dad was away. And so we were out all day. This was for polo, so it wasn't like something else. The day my dad came back, we're leaving and he's like, where are you going? And then when will you be back? And so like, it's different with the dad, but my mother's so chill that moving in with her does not feel difficult, and I could live with her for the rest of my life, honestly speaking. I hope to.
Okay. So let's talk about your career.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And you've done really well
Thank you.
in your career, and, you know, worked in many places.
Yes.
Done some really good stuff. But where was that... where was that point where you were like, okay, you started taking your career a bit more seriously, or you felt like, okay, I love doing what I do?
Yes. Careem.
Yeah.
I talk about it a lot. I think I'd done some odd jobs. Worked in investment banking. I realized early on that investment banking wasn't for me because there was a lot of making pitches and like Excel and all of that. Not that I'm bad at it. It's just I didn't enjoy it. And then I tried my hand at a startup, and the CEO of that startup told me you should do operations. And I was really like, no, I'm not going to do operations. And I've done operations since then. He said, you have an eye for it. He said, you should either do sales or operations. And I said, sales, no way. I don't like it. But I think Careem, because what happened was at Careem, they gave you so much responsibility at such a young age, and they didn't see that you're a girl or a guy or whatever. They just said, oh, she can work. She's willing to work. She's willing to learn. Let's give her that work. And I think working with some really smart people. So when you're working in an investment bank, there's like the CEO, then there's the MD, then there's GM, then there's this and this and this, and you're only talking to this person. So how much more can you learn? When I started at Careem, I used to sit next to Mudassir, who's now like incredibly well known. And so I used to sit next to him, and I got that chance to learn from him. And I actually got up every morning really excited for what work was. And over there, eventually I expanded businesses. So now I think that what I like doing is expansion, because it's new, it's for 6 months, and then you go to a new place, and then it's that. But Careem got me really excited, and I got very, very lucky. And that's when I had to make a decision whether it's career or it's, settling down.
Yeah.
And because my job was expansion and I had to be in a different city every few months, just like this time it was few months, but just like the army, I just focused a lot on my career.
Yeah.
And I just worked really, really hard. And I think the trick is that I didn't say no to anything. Because when you're in a startup, there's so many things that you could do. So I'd finish my work and I'd be like, what's next?
Yeah.
Or how can I help? Or I would sit with other teams and learn what they were doing. Because I was genuinely invested in making sure that Careem was successful. And I felt like every person that was working was contributing. And when an employer or a CEO founder can make you feel that way, you'll see amazing results.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons why you felt, so attached to the success of Careem and everything was because you joined early on. Na? These were the early days of Careem, sitting next to Mudassir Sheikha and everything. And building it from scratch.
Yes.
That gives you a feeling of ownership.
100%.
Making it work and making it successful.
Yes.
As compared to, joining a corporate jo ki already chal rahi hai, and you're just, just one of
the many fish. Yes.
Yeah. So I think it was that had you feeling really passionate about.
It was also the team, because I have been part of other
startups.
I would say the ones that I haven't even disclosed, where it was pretty early on.
Okay, yeah.
But I think it's a mix of how you can get your hands dirty, how much trust they have in you as an individual. And the one thing I've noticed is with founders that do really well is they really easily identify people who will be donkeys like me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I loved it, nothing else made me happy other than just being at work and making sure that Careem was going well. And the moment I feel that way about a company is when I know I'm going to stay, which is why, the current company that I'm at, I'm going to stay for a while because they make me feel that way. And the two things that in common is I've never been looked at as a girl in these companies. It's never, oh, she's a girl. I think it came up once when I was expanding and I was going to different countries and they said, oh, there's a girl going. And I think Mudassir said she's tougher than all of you men put together. So I think that's one of the biggest compliments that I've ever gotten.
Yeah. So, and was the nature of your job in Careem something that people could say, oh, this is not what women do, or
100%?
Okay, what was that?
Yes.
What was it?
So I had to go to a new city or a country and start the business from scratch.
Okay.
So I came to Pakistan and the team came later. I came first. I selected the first drivers. I did the first hiring. I went to the first few universities to get brand ambassadors. And so while Pakistan was okay, but when I went to, Iran to look at it, they sent somebody with me. We never launched in Iran, but like other countries that I went to, I remember where it became an issue was I was in Turkey and we were about to launch in Turkey, or I was doing the exploration of Turkey. So two of us girls went. It was myself and two other girls in my team at that time. I had a very lean team. And so two of us went, and there was that fake coup in Turkey. So Turkey shut down for 3 days and we weren't able to come out. And there was like airstrikes and stuff.
Okay.
That's when like a lot of people got freaked out. And so my question was, if a guy was there, would you not be as freaked out, or is his life not as important? And so at that point in time, I think that's the only time they questioned it. But other than that, there was a lot of, she's a girl, is it really safe for her to go country to country to launch? And luckily I had parents that supported me, and I had a boss that supported me, and my brother who encouraged me. So I held on to that job for a while. Yeah.
So how long did you work in Careem?
I worked for 4 years and 9 months.
Yeah, and you launched it here in Pakistan.
I did launch it. I launched it here in Pakistan. There's a lot of people that will say that they launched it, but I was the launch. But that's okay. You know what? At every single point in time, somebody came and contributed, but I did come in first. I did set up the first few drivers. I did set up the team. I did train the team on the ground. And then I was in Pakistan for 9 months launching it. And then when the team had the hang of it, I moved on to other markets.
Yeah. Okay, I need to understand. So when you launched Careem in Pakistan, hired the first few drivers, like really set up the foundation in the system, what was your biggest challenge you felt here in Pakistan, setting that up?
I think the drivers were asking for a lot of money, which we were willing to give. I think the challenge was that everyone that I spoke to said there is no way that Careem's going to work, because no brother or father or mother would let a girl sit in a car with a stranger. And you know what? Every time they said it, my resolve grew stronger. So I started doing it. I did it myself. When I first came, I was staying with relatives. My parents weren't here. And I would order a Careem at every hour of the day. And I said, if I feel safe, and I would not tell them that I'm from Careem, right? If I feel safe, I'll lead by example. And that's how, then we talked to the girls at LUMS and they started feeling safe and they did it. So the challenge was the mentality of people here saying that this will never work, or people asking for way too much money to do what we asked them to do, or people saying this will never work. However, let me tell you that Careem, one of the smartest teams that we had in Careem was the Pakistan team. Because the talent here is phenomenal. We just need to have companies come in that will actually be a part of blooming that talent, nurturing that talent, and actually getting the full potential out of them. So the team was exceptional here. Most of them got a job in our headquarters, which, whichever company you're with, once you get an offer to go to the headquarters, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So that challenge we overcame.
Yeah, no, we all see
yes.
that everybody is using Careem now.
Yes.
In fact, I feel like it's given, I think, women and young girls
a lot of freedom.
They actually are now able to step out because they have this option
100%.
through this app, through this company that's, it's protecting them.
It is.
Yeah.
You know how many women have thanked me, and that makes me so happy, because they say, we had to rely on our brothers or our fathers, and some mothers have complained because the girls are too independent now. But I think I've seen some girls use Careem bike, which is also such a break in thinking. Like, I wouldn't use a Careem bike because you'd have to sit too close to the rider, right? Yeah. But they're using it, and it's exceptional. So I think anything that I can do that uplifts women, or something, it's every small thing that I can do for women.
This is my story as well, because so I was studying in Lahore, so I was in the dorms here, and before Careem we all used to use rickshaw.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the most convenient, wasn't the best. हमारी जो university है वो थी भी थोड़ी दूर from the main city.
Yeah.
So then Careem came in, and our life became so much more,
so
convenient and easier, because you would just be like Careeming everywhere.
And we really wanted to make this a word. Let's Careem it. When we started out, we said that it should be used as a verb. So the fact that you just said it makes it. See, it's been I left Careem in 2018. So that's about, 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
And I still talk about Careem as us. And circles which I'm at right now, no matter where I go next, or if I stay with them very long, I know that I will be saying us. So those are two companies that have really, really made me feel really special.
Yeah, I feel like it's part of your identity.
Yes,
that's how I feel. Like, whenever somebody says Fatima Mazhar talks about Careem,
Yes.
like everybody knows, because you were one of the people, who made the company.
And there is actually some phenomenal women other than myself who were the part of this. And, I'd give a shout out to Kulsum, who was our social media manager, and fast job, and Tanzila, who did Twitter for us, and I think Twitter made such a difference. And so there's so many unsung women heroes in companies, and I think that if we could just make them shine, it would be great.
Yeah. So then why did you leave Careem? Where did you go?
Look, I had been working in Careem for 5 years, almost 5 years, and you have to understand that no matter where you are, at some point in time, your growth is going to be stagnated. You can only climb up to a certain point, and then there has to be a leap of something that makes you go to the next level. Because by the time we were there, Careem had enough money to get the people from like the likes of Facebook or all of these people where they'd worked. And I'm not just saying Facebook, I'm just saying, these companies. So I decided that I wanted to do something that would revive my career. So I decided to quit, but Mudassir said, why don't you take a sabbatical?
Okay, yeah.
And so I didn't leave Careem, I took a sabbatical, and I applied to my dream school, MIT, and I got in and I did an MBA.
So beach mein ye bhi hua.
Yes, I did. I told you that I had to, from my bachelor's, I went straight into my master's, and what I really wanted to do was an MBA. And in the US, it's practically impossible for you to get into an MBA program if you haven't done work experience. So it's at the back of my head, and I talked about it a lot, and I wanted to do it, and just God works in mysterious ways. So one of my best friends and I that were Dubai best friends had talked about wanting to go to B school. He'd said, I want to go to Harvard. I'd said, I want to go to MIT. And without talking to each other, we applied the same year, got in, and he was at Harvard and I was at MIT at the same time. So I went to MIT, and while I was at MIT, Imran Khan got elected.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going back to Pakistan. And, everyone who's anyone said, why would you go back to Pakistan? And I said, this is a Pakistan I can be proud of. So I said no to a lot of job offers. Careem said, come to HQ or Dubai. We don't need you in Pakistan. Pakistan had a big team. There was no space for me there. Okay. And I also said, I've done whatever I could have there. So I decided to leave Careem and I got into KeepTruckin as the GM. And then I moved with KeepTruckin to Pakistan. I think I graduated on the 15th of June, and 1st of July I was in Pakistan working for them. It took me 15 days to pack up my life in Boston and move here.
And how was KeepTruckin?
KeepTruckin was incredible. So Shoaib Makani and Ubaid Khan, I think this question would be very weird, but I did ask them. I said, I haven't lived in Pakistan for 17 years. Are you sure that you're okay with a female GM in Pakistan? Because I didn't know how things were going to be. And they said that there is no place for anyone that will not be comfortable with a female GM. And I think that was incredible. So I came here and I think I might look a bit younger than I am because I'm not that young. And I think the first few days I heard comments like, "Ye doodh piti bachchi ko hamara GM bana diya." Yeah, some mean comments here and there. But then I worked with a team and I managed about, a team of 2,000 people. And so it was a great experience. I got called to a lot of podcasts to say, how does it feel to be a woman leader? And I said, till you start calling me a leader and not a woman leader, I will not come and speak, because I think I'm a leader and we should not say woman leader. However, it was a very fun experience. However, did I say however twice? It was a fun experience, but the role of GM got too boring for me.
Okay.
I just feel like it was the same thing day in, day out. And so I'd really like expanding with Careem.
Yeah.
And so there is my nemesis at Careem, somebody who I can't work with, but I love as a person and outside of the office. And so I told him, let me come to Careem, Pakistan as a GM. He said, no, you'll be bored in 2 days and you'll leave. I said, no way. And so after the 2 years that I was at KeepTruckin and I wanted to leave because I was bored with the role, I called him and I apologized because I was like, yeah, you were right. I really can't do this role.
Yeah, and I think especially, like you said, growing up, you were like
always moving.
Yeah.
So see, I was in college and I told you I went to 2 different countries. I couldn't even complete the 2 years that I was supposed to complete. Even with my master's, I did 2 semesters in other universities.
Okay.
So every time I say I want to set my roots up, it never happens.
No, but I understand that because it's the same for me.
Yeah.
And maybe not as much as you, but it is kind of like that. So it's like, in a few years, I'm done. I want change.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, in a way, addicted to change. You know how people are sometimes afraid of change? I love change. I want the change. Where is the change?
That is very, very true.
Yeah.
No, but I've been saying recently that I don't want change. So when I moved back to Pakistan, I moved to Islamabad. And then COVID hit, so I came back home. And I was like, this is great. Why would I live anywhere else? And then I got this job with Circles and they wanted me to be based out of Islamabad. And so I moved to Islamabad. And then when I finished the project with them in Islamabad, I moved back home. And now they've got other projects which have me traveling to 2 very different countries in the next few months. And I just was having a conversation, can I do it? And my dad said, listen, as soon as that is finalized, you'll be the first one on the plane and gone. But this is why, having a family and having a partner, I don't know if that's going to work. No, sorry, don't call it partner, husband. Is going to work because who's going to put up with somebody who moves every 6 months?
Yeah. So
unless they move with you.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? So, पहले it was, you said your parents were expecting, ठीक है, पढ़ के आएगी, फिर masters करेगी और फिर शादी करा लेंगे, right? So in this entire time, marriage didn't come anywhere in the picture, right? And you said one of the themes that you feel strongly about is, women and marriage. And you've had a very, like I said, leadership role in your career, and you're doing so well in your career. So how do you feel about this idea around, women getting married and everything, and how that didn't happen for you, or you didn't make it a priority for yourself?
That's a very good question. Yeah. So I think when I was growing up, I said no to marriage, and I said, this isn't going to work out. But I think the the time it really hit me was when I got the position at Careem. That was about the right time. If I'd wanted to get married, I was in my late 20s. When I was thinking about the opportunity at Careem, right, that came at a time when I should have been looking at I was already too late. I think after 25, at 22, people started asking me the question after I graduated. But we were in Dubai, I was working, my parents weren't too bothered. I think the first time they got bothered was when my brother said, okay, I'm ready to get married. You're my elder sister. He asked me for permission and I said, yes, go ahead. It just never worked out. I think at first it was like, I don't want to get married. And then the other thing was when my parents weren't able to find anyone for me. Or they talked to a lot of people and it just didn't happen. So it feels like it was written in the cards. But then I think about it. With Careem, I took 286 flights in 2 years.
My goodness.
Which means that I was in a different city, different country every few days, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about that and you think about marriage is a partnership, right? Like, how would I like it if I get married to somebody and he's traveling all the time?
Yeah.
That's just not fair. That's just too difficult. So I thought, okay, after Careem. And then after Careem, I went to MIT. And so then after MIT, I thought, okay, when I go to Pakistan. But by the time I came to Pakistan, I was at an age where, Pakistani men were like, or in my head, they were like, no. So I didn't prioritize it. I prioritized my career. And I definitely think, because I've heard conversations, I've been in rooms where, like a lot of women are not, where, we're thinking of promoting somebody and the question comes and they're like, okay, this job requires travel. Will she be able to travel? Is she married? Is the shadi on a plan? Are babies on plan? Which are questions that you really can't ask, at least abroad. But here, they have come up. And I feel like I wouldn't be where I am if I had been married, not just married, had kids. So, who you really need to appreciate? Women that are doing it in their career and in their families, that are able to balance that and still do really well, would be incredible, because I feel like maybe I wouldn't have been able to. So the credit goes there. And a lot of, when they ask me about women in leadership and women in that, I have imposter syndrome. So I don't know what people are talking about when you say, oh, you did really well. I'm like, okay, really? Did I? I need constant reassurance. But would I be able to do it if I had children at home that I had to leave and go on months? I have 2 nieces I love. They are the center of my world. My relationship with my family changed when my nieces came into my life, because I wanted to be home more. I wanted to spend time with them. I wanted to be a better person for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I do not now want to do, because I think, okay, my nieces are looking up to me. Would they appreciate it? I love them, right? And I'm their puppo, so I have to work extra hard, because you know what puppo's reputation is in Pakistan, right?
Yes, you're fighting the stereotype also.
I am fighting the stereotype. No, but you don't understand. I'm actually scared, because people always love their khalas more and puppos don't get that much love. And so it really scares me that there'll be a day where they'll be like, she's just my puppo and she's annoying. So I go overboard. But, I want to set a good example for them. And once my bhabhi said, Fatima, can you please drive the kids from my house to her house? And I said, no. And she said, why are you saying no? I said, no. What if something happens to them in the car? What if I'm driving and something happens? I couldn't live with myself. This is how I am with my nieces. I don't know how I would be with my children. I don't know if I'd leave them out of my sight. I don't know if I would be able to leave them. I get panicked when I think about that situation, right? So whenever I have women that work with me that have kids, I love them so much, because I'm like, that is a sacrifice I don't quite know if I would have been able to make. So there's a lot of appreciation, a lot of love, and a lot of the criticism is taken off when they say that women aren't willing to do it. Wow, how can you? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's mad props to all the women that have kids and are doing as well as they are, because I really, really think if I'd chosen to be married and had kids, I would have said no to my career a long time ago. And I made a conscious choice, and I don't know already. I do not know yet if I'm ready to say I regret it, but every time I see a kid now, I do have that at the back of my mind. So it's a very, very tough choice. So people who are watching, people who want to do both, know that you'll be a little divided in your heart, on always, am I doing this well enough? So am I sacrificing my kids? If I'm looking after my kids, am I sacrificing my job? And somebody who is like an overthinker like me would go crazy.
Yeah.
But talk to me in another year and I'll tell you. Maybe I look at my nieces and I'm like, it'd be nice to have one of those for myself.
Yeah. So you have, traveled so much because of your work, and you have worked for a very long time. So can you tell me your thoughts generally about women in workplaces, whether that's in Pakistan, whether that's abroad? What has that experience like been for you?
It depends on company to company. I wouldn't say country to country because look, everywhere, if you choose the wrong company to work for, you will face it. Everywhere. So I am very particular about the company that I'm choosing to work at. I will go to Glassdoor, I will go to ex-employees, I will ask them, and I will see exactly what the women are saying about that place, right? I will also check who's in the leadership, how many women are in the leadership, and what role are women in the leadership. You can say I have three women in my, and they'll be the head of legal, head of HR, and head of marketing, right? Those roles that you traditionally think belong to women. The number of times in Pakistan I've been asked, so marketing or HR? It boils my blood because people think those are the only two things women can do. And I know some kick-ass marketeer men who should be offended at that question, you know. So I think it depends on the company and the country. And very early on, I chose to identify myself as somebody who works at a company regardless of my gender.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times, I'm going to speak about myself, not about women.
Okay.
A lot of times when I did not do something as well and I did not get that promotion, the easy route would be, it's because I'm a woman, right? There are times that happens, but we have to be very objective about, is it happening because I'm a woman or is it happening because I have not delivered up to the task? But I will tell you that a lot of mediocre men can get away by doing a job that an exceptional woman has to do. And there are some very mediocre men that get a very easy ride because they're men for a job. And they will look at things like, oh, he doesn't have a family. Well, he can travel. Well, he can stay late at night. You know, at Careem, when we started off, I have this amazing colleague, Kulsum. She made it very clear that she can't stay late at night. Right? And so sometimes I was asked by other people that she can't stay at night. Do we have to keep her? And I said, I want her talent more than I want her in the office, right? So if she's saying she can do this while she's at home and she picks up my call at home, and all of this in the background, I think you can change your colleagues' thinking and you can change the way things are at work. And they are changing. Even in Pakistan, they're getting a bit better. All of this then boils down to the thinking of the father and the brother and the mother. And so when I talk about women in the workplace, I have to push and talk about them. How they train your mind when you go out, like, oh, you have to be careful because you're a woman. Actually, you do in Pakistan because it's not safe.
Yeah, it's not safe.
However, I think things are changing. The Me Too movement that happened way back when is now translating into Pakistan as well. And we are getting better. But again, it depends on how strong you are as a woman, how scared or intimidated they are by you. They'll stay away. And what role you are. As you're at a more senior role, you get harassed less. So it's the new entrant women in the special socio-economic job titles that are more troubled than others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you said that the more sort of power you have in the company, or if you're in a leadership role, it's different because obviously you were leading them, right? But do you think that people find it hard to accept women in leadership positions?
Yes. Okay. I remember, I will not name the company, but I remember there was, we were doing a project and it was the busiest night and there was chaos everywhere. And so I just stepped in because the leader of that team was off, and so we were all trying to work, and I saw chaos, and my mind just organized something. So I got up, I told everyone to keep quiet. I said, this is what we'll do, this is what we'll do, this is what we'll do. And the next day I got called in by HR, and I was told that I'm too bossy, and I'm American. I still, to this day, this is the feedback that I don't understand. What does it mean that you're American? And I was told that I shouldn't be that bossy because I offended a lot of the people. So I blame that HR lady a lot, because at that point in time, she should have said, you don't do this. But I took it, I took her advice. I said yes. And I did that the other day, the next day and the next day, because I'm not going to let anyone tell me that I'm being bossy if the work is being done. So you look at the work. But again, you have to have some sponsors in the company. So what I've been blessed with is one or the other leadership member has been a sponsor, which means that they will have my back if I go out of hand. So your work has to be so good. But this is where I say that for any mediocre job, for any job, a mediocre man will have to get it. And so I always let my work speak. I worked harder than anyone else. So as women, you have to work harder than anyone else to be appreciated. Your work has to be more perfect than anyone else. And that cannot change. That will not change. It might change in the future. But if you want to do well, be prepared to work harder, longer, smarter than any man in there, because that's the only way you'll shine.
Yeah, I agree with you. You really have to prove yourself, and you have to fight the fight of stereotypes.
Yes.
Because you're not just there to prove that you are capable of this work. Yes, you have to do that as well, but also break all these biases,
Yes.
gender biases in people's head, the
100%.
assumptions that they have about you.
Yeah.
And
And so I think it's not even proving yourself once, right? You have to turn up every day, and you have to prove yourself every day, and it does get exhausting. But I think that because I think it was like a couple of years ago when I reflected on my life, and I thought, okay, this is what I've chosen to do. So I have no choice but to be excellent, because what else do I have? I've chosen this path, so I have to be good. But it gets exhausting, right? And you still get all sorts of comments. At this age, I get this comment like, which marketing or HR, how many people do you manage? Do they listen to you? Or are you actually managing them? Or did your dad help you get this job? My dad didn't help me get any job. He said, I will not help you. Not that he could either. What could an retired army person do at that point in time? Although he had a really good job after he retired. So, but it does get very, very difficult. You shout, which I don't ever do. But if you're frustrated and you shout, she's getting emotional.
Yeah.
If you, I was told once that I would never do well in life because I'm way too empathetic to my employees, to my team. I was then told that you're too frank with your team. They will take it the wrong way. I have been told that I think like a woman. And I said, thank God for that.
Yeah.
That does not mean that I've not gone back home and cried and thought this is not fair and this is not that. But I think it's a struggle every day. But if in your mind you start seeing yourself as somebody who's contributing to the company and somebody who can just answer back respectfully without emotion. And it took me a long time to say, take the emotion out of it. This is where they do better. They don't take it personally.
Yeah.
I still struggle with that. But I think I've had some great mentors, but it shouldn't be like that. Like a guy will not come sit here and say, oh, the reason why I've been able to do great is I had like a support system that backed me up, or I had like somebody who like spoke for me. I've said the exact same thing in the exact same tone and been told off, whether it is in a polo match. So in the polo match, you have an umpire and you're not supposed to speak to the umpire. But I'm, very passionate, as I told you. And again, I'm very passionate, but the guy is just, being a guy. So if I say something to the umpire and somebody else, say my friend, says the same thing to the umpire, I will be penalized because this lady is getting emotional on the field, right? So it goes in every aspect. How you deal with it is what matters. And it took me a very long time to learn to deal with it. Not that it still doesn't bother me. The person who asked me like marketing or HR, I said, do you think that's the only thing women do? But you have to bite your tongue sometimes.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
And these are the assumptions, the biases that I said that you're constantly fighting against.
Yes.
Assumption ke HR or marketing hi hoga.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I bought a car
Huh.
in Pakistan and I took it out. It's a Mercedes. I was very proud of it. You know, I'd worked really hard.
Yes, we know.
No, but like, I was so offended because I was asked, so, oh, your daddy must love you a lot because he bought you this car. I've made a post on Facebook about buying my first property in Pakistan, right? So like I'm doing investments and I'm older than most people when they do this, right? I've spent a lot of time to get here to a point where I can do this. And I posted about it and a lot of people said, you know, oh, your dad. I play polo. In polo, you have to buy horses, you have to feed horses, you have to do this. 90% of the people that play polo have a family business or they have parents that support them. They're all men. I am the single female patron that earns herself, buys her horses herself, feeds her horses herself, and then makes a team herself. And even then, like I have to say, you know, no, my dad's not involved. My dad said, I will not give you any money for polo because it is money down the drain, which is actually true. So these are the kind of things that will never go away in Pakistan. Apart from that, you know, moti ho gaye ho, thoda sa weight lose kar lo, maybe some guys will like you. You're not married yet, like fix your skin. You might get, you know, you don't look that old, but if you lose some weight, maybe you'll be able to get somebody. Never realizing that maybe we don't need somebody or we don't want somebody. And somebody who loves me for how thin I look, is that really somebody I want to get married to? But this is what's wrong, not worldwide, this is Pakistan.
Okay.
But other than Pakistan, there is all this. I think size doesn't matter that much in other places.
Okay.
Pakistan, your color, your size, your hair, what you wear, how you look, all matters.
And whether you're married or not.
Whether you're married or not. I got into MIT and I top 3 moments of my life easily.
Okay.
Right? It's going to rank up there no matter what happens now. It's going to rank up there. Yeah. I paid for it myself. I got into it myself. I made the decision myself. And so one of my colleagues wrote to me congratulating me. And at the end, and there's like a lot of people on this email chain, he said, now you'll be able to find a really good guy. Come back with the guy. So no matter what you do, so I play polo, I'm from MIT, I work and still work my ass off. I have my own flat, I have my own car. You know, I've done everything that a man would do and be considered successful. And I still have to hear, not married, don't have any kids. And everyone asks you, so am I always going to be defined by that? Am I going to die being this person that never got married and people are just going to look at me with sad puppy eyes and say, oh no, she's not married, something must be wrong with her. So I feel like I keep doing all of this to prove a point. And at one point in time, I just got sick of it and I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. If they ask me why you're not married, I'll be like, nobody really liked me. What else can I say?
Yeah.
But why is it? Why is it that you're defined by who you marry, how many kids you have, whether it's a son or a girl?
It's interesting because, you know, for women, that's the metric of success. You know?
Why?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, हमारे मुल्क में या हमारे कल्चर में it's just like, oh, शादी हुई या नहीं, बच्चे हुए या नहीं, घर में खाना बना लिया या नहीं, you know? Like,
that way I failed.
I mean, it's like, you know, you can... So I know someone who, you know, got married and she was doing very successful in her career. She was a doctor. So she was going to the hospital in the morning and then she had some other business on the side that she was doing, her own small business. So she was doing that. And every time, you know, like, she could be doing surgeries at the hospital, doing whatever the hell in the hospital and, you know, working on her business on the side. But every time, you know, she would come home, you know, her mother-in-law would say, chalo beta khana lagao. And it was all about, and it was like, it didn't matter. Like, the moment she entered the house, your mother-in-law just tried to suddenly remind her you know, because it was a clear statement that she would make. Listen, this is your real job.
Yeah.
Now that you've done all the fun you wanted to have outside, you know, this is your real job. Now let's go into the kitchen. You know,
That
you
is
can do whatever, you know, you want
outside.
You can achieve anything, but can you make food? Is the real question. And you can do absolutely nothing, but if you can make the food, you've succeeded at life, you know, as a woman. So this is not fair at all.
It's not fair at all. And I think, like, I did consider so a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, I'm ready to get married. I've come to Pakistan. You know, how does this work? How does this marriage thing work, right? And so I spoke to my brother. You know, I really wish more sisters had him as a brother. And he, like, really went into the depth of it. He's like, okay, tell me. And he kept saying it. And in the end, it turned out that I really wanted to get married because I wanted my parents to be able to say that our daughter's married. So I'm not embarrassed that I'm not married because I think that it's totally fine. I think I'm able to take care of myself. And yes, maybe when you need a companion, you'll feel the need. But I feel like Allah also has a plan. You know what? Allah doesn't want... I'm very close to God, and it happened when I came back to Pakistan. It's a beautiful transformation. But studying that, I realized that, you know, Allah has a plan as well. But I just want my parents to be able to say it. I see my parents sometimes say, oh, you know, this person has like 2 daughters and sons. Forget that. Let's talk about how my brother has 2 daughters and people won't leave him alone to have a third because maybe that could be a son.
Oh my God.
Let's talk about how, like, when he had a second daughter, people said, oh, maybe it should have been a guy. And thank God
Chalo, next time, inshallah, beta ho jayega.
Can you imagine? How do you think children are born? They are born because there are women in this earth. So if everyone starts producing men, how are you going to have a population that's going to grow?
And how are you going to get more boys if that's what you're so obsessed with?
Exactly. Who's going to cook your food? Who's going to mother you at the age of freaking 35, 45, 55, which is what, like,
so
you know, men
absurd,
want. It is. So I think that apart from women in the workplace, what you said is beautiful in the sense that if we did have women in the workplace as well, they would be expected to do this. I thought this was I've been on these, you know, some of these Pakistani pages, right, with women and stuff. And I thought, like, they were joking about some of the stuff that they said, but there was a series about, like, ridiculous things that rich aunties have refused you for or whatever. And in there, like, people were saying all sorts of stories. I was like, this is ridiculous. And then my friend, younger sister, she was approached by somebody for a rishta because they were looking for a tall, fair doctor.
Okay.
Right? And so when they started talking, they were like, okay, she's perfect, she's fair, this girl's beautiful, she's going to be a doctor, she's really, really smart. And they said, yes, once you finish your doctorate, no need to do a house job. We want a doctor, but we don't want you to work afterwards. So this actually happens. So and how does it matter if she's tall or fair or a doctor? If she's a horrible person, you're going to have a horrible life. And it is women that are becoming these mother-in-laws, So it all stops, the buck stops here. We are our biggest enemies. And if we were to turn around and say, our mothers were to say, go work, our mother-in-laws would say, yes, this is good, I'm proud of you, things would be different.
Yeah.
Why are we out there blaming men?
Yeah. We need to fix ourselves first. Now, a lot of the patriarchy and misogyny, the women perpetuate it. In a lot of the homes,
100%.
the father-in-law couldn't give her access about any of it. But the mother-in-law will be like, no, I have to ensure that she does this and this for my son. You know, and for the household
So this is what bothers me a lot. Women will not let other women grow in an organization. Mm-hmm. Women will compete with other women in the organization when they should be competing with men, or, you know, compete in the same role to get promoted. Doesn't matter if it's a woman or women will sit there and gossip about other women. So when we talk about the workplace, or when we talk about this, we as women ourselves have to be better. Like, I will tell you that I will really look at when people are walking in, I will look at a woman's outfit. I will check her hair out. I will check her makeup. I'll say, okay, what is she doing? And sometimes I would be a little judgmental. I check it. But mostly when people are walking in front of me and when people watching, I'm looking at women. Usually inspired by them because Lahore has such beautiful women who take such good care of them.
That's
so
true.
I feel really, really bad. Shout out to the Lahori women. They always look stunning all the time.
They do,
And they really know how to take care of everything. And they're so gorgeous, right? Whatever size. But if women were to uplift women, I have this colleague. Her name is Shamsa. Shout out. She's the first colleague that I've met. Both of us had each other's back. We had some problem in our office. We both had it. We talked to each other. And honestly, I wanted to lift her. She wanted to lift me. We became friends. But this is the first time in 16 years of myself working that I can tell you, except for the two girls, Tanzila and Kulsum, at the start of my Careem career, that if I were up for a promotion and she were up for a promotion, she would take my name and I would take her name. Two girls in 16 years, and I could give you a host of men. I mean, they would fight me tooth and nail for it, but they would also be like, okay, you deserve it as well. I've never had a good experience with a lot of the women that I've worked with because they're always competing. There's always some sort of scandal. There's always some sort of drama. There's always some sort of this. And maybe I was one of the drama at one point in time, right? I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying that we make it difficult.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've seen it in my real eyes, women choosing men to get promoted because, oh, maybe she's going to have a baby. She just got married or whatever. At the end of the day, everyone's going to look after their business, whatever they're working in their role. But my question is, why always blame men when it's the women that need to look inside them?
It's true. We need to take responsibility, It's very easy to sit and complain and put all the blame on men for making our lives difficult. But we need to take responsibility and be accountable for our actions as well on what role we are playing in
100%.
supporting other women.
What are we doing? So everyone who's listening, or like if you're sitting here, when was the last time? I mean, you do this for a living, you uplift women. So, you're one of the very few, right? I've also seen, and I'm not going to take names, but I've also seen people say, we're going to be doing this for women, this for women, this for women. And that really doesn't happen. It's a selling tactic for themselves. So we just really need to be honest. And I think that it's very easy to just say, oh, you know what? It's the men after us. And by the way, Pakistani men might be a bit difficult, but who enables them to be difficult? If there is a man who's being very difficult towards his wife, they all live with their mother-in-laws, right? These women. If she were to step in, how would things change? And it's going to start from there. It's going to start from your mother's not telling you that marriage is the most important thing. It's going to start from mothers not telling you, don't go sit outside, you'll get dark. Don't cut your hair, men will not like you. We're so basic and back in our thinking that in Pakistan we need to change that. These are the conversations we need to be having. The other conversations come much later. I remember I actually once, and there's a lot of witnesses to that. I was I'm a shareholder at COLABS. I was at COLABS. We didn't talk much about it. It's one of my favorite places to be at. I had a colleague there where her dad was refusing to let her work, and I begged him. And at the end of the conversation, I cried, saying that she has so much potential. Just please give her one more chance and let her work because she's going to do really, really well. There were other reasons why she wasn't being allowed to work. That's not the point. But the point is that that's how much I enjoyed her work and I thought she would do well. And I've always advocated for at least the women that are working in my office. That's the one step you can take, right? But if you stop competing and if you stop being jealous, that's the word.
Yeah, that
There's a
is
lot
the
of
word.
jealousy.
It's the jealousy.
And it shouldn't be, because everyone offers something different, right? And I think that everyone's beautiful in their own way. This whole like, what is she wearing? Why is she wearing this? Who am I to judge? I get judged a lot on what I'm wearing as well. So I think that is a sort of mostly by my parents as well. Are you seriously wearing that out? Please change. But that's years of being abroad and then figuring out how to make it here. So that's it. I think that I was at MIT and I talked about women hating on women, and I got a lot of flack from women that had gotten into MIT for saying what I said. They weren't very happy. They said that we should stick together, and I said the whole point about sticking together is being truthful as well. And let's see how united we are. All the men were always united, but the women had groupings. The one grouping and the other grouping. But anyway.
Okay, how about you brought up COLABS.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about COLABS. How did you end up there?
Oh, it's a very funny story. So I decided to do, okay, I'll be honest now. So after KeepTruckin, I didn't have a backup. I've never had a backup when I've left a job, by the way. I've always, when I wanted to leave a job, trust that risk upar se aata hai, and trust that something's going to happen, and always have enough saving for a month or two that if I don't get something that I can survive. So KeepTruckin, I wasn't very excited by the role. They didn't have many other roles. If I had to do a role, I had to move to the US because that's where the roles were. And so that wasn't an option for me because I really do want to be with my parents, close to them at least. So what I decided to do, at that time, there was a boom in the Pakistani economy. Money was coming in, startups. And so a lot of people were telling me, do a startup, do a startup, do a startup. And so I said, I don't want to be a single founder. I've seen a lot of startups. I've advised a lot of startups to see being a single founder, and especially a single female founder, was not going to fly. Women don't get a lot of money as founders. You can do the research.
Investors don't invest.
Investors do not invest in women-led startups.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data on that, right?
Yeah, I have some idea,
Yes, I'm sure you would.
Yeah.
And also because women are more careful. So the research says we're more careful with money because we've managed it all our lives, whether it's at our homes or stuff. That's what they say, right? And so I said, I'll go with another founder. So this investor, he pushed me in with a founder, and I decided not to spend a lot of time. And he also decided that we wouldn't get to know each other very, very well. And we jumped into this, and we had very different working styles. Very, very different. I'm very, very friendly with the people I work with, and I'm very empathetic. And I would rather do more for employee welfare than I would for the company. And that's where I've been told repeatedly that I would not be a good leader because I put people first. But my philosophy is if you invest in your people, they'll be happier, they'll make your customer happier, and the circle will come all around. Yes. And luckily I'm at a company now that believes that. But so I left that startup 4 months in. Nobody really does that. I quit being a founder within 4 months. Pissed off that investor quite a lot. And I wanted to go sit at a co-working space and figure my life out. I was like, what do I want to do? Because I still don't know what I want to do, right? And so I went, I told my dad, we were just having a conversation. He said, what do you want to do next? I said, this is what I want to do. He's like, oh, I know Omar Shah. He worked with us at COLABS. So why don't you go to COLABS? You'll sit there. So I went and got an office there. And from the moment I got the office there, Omar Shah was like, you have to work with us. He was in the process of raising funds for COLABS. He said that if you come on board, it'll be fun. And I stayed there for a month. I helped him raise around, which I'm really proud of because, investors were willing to put in the money. And then I invested a little in COLABS, and the day-to-day was, again, really boring. We weren't expanding at that time, and the expansion is mostly related to construction when it comes to co-working spaces. And that wasn't exciting. So I went from KeepTruckin to my own startup to COLABS within like the 2-year period. I'd done 3, so that gave a lot of problems to prospective employers. And I said, listen, you should be happy. I know what I want. I know what makes me happy. So I will not sit there and take salary from you and drag it out till I find something else. I'll be gone. And they said so. So I found Circles where I am. It's a Singapore-based telco company which is doing projects all over the world. I work remote for them. And the one thing that I keep telling them is that I'm never treated as a woman. Some of the smartest people that they have are across operations, customer happiness, engineering. All leaders are women. And it is just an incredible environment. And that's where women are uplifting women. We usually are like saying something bad about a guy, but never about women. And so, but that's a joke. We don't even have that much time. So, but seeing a company that has like women in these really incredible roles like engineering and operations, head these departments and do such a phenomenal job just makes me happy.
Yeah, and so having that culture where women are supporting women, right? And if you have women like that in your leadership roles, that's the culture that's going to get defined then. It's going to trickle down. Yeah,
and
hopefully.
it is. It's really, really good. I've spoken to a bunch of women to say this is what you should do, and I really told. I don't like to praise my bosses too much or give them a lot of good feedback. I think it goes to their head, and they get it all the time anyway. It should be honest. But I did say that I feel like I'm not a woman at. I forgot the name of Circles.
Yeah.
I was going to say COLABS. And that's a big compliment for them. And, we just have a hard time being heard. I don't know if you've felt this, but if you're sitting in a room, even with friends, sometimes I'm sitting with friends and they'll talk over me. Or I'm talking and they'll just start speaking. My dad does it to me all the time. This is my biggest complaint with him. I'm talking and he'll just start talking about something else randomly. And Circles was the first place. I think I had tears in my eyes the first time this happened. It's the first place where when I speak, they listen. And I don't have a very senior leadership role at Circles, not at all. And I think that's the one thing I didn't discuss is my career's gone like this to this to this to this because I was looking for culture and I was looking at people. So whatever role they offered me, I'd take and then I'd gradually make my way up, right? Because I'm not hungry for leadership, which is where I think another thing where women don't excel is we're not hungry for that leadership role. We're not hungry for recognition. We're not hungry for the bigger paycheck.
So the jealousy, that competition, it's not there then, right?
No, it's there. Okay. I think some of us are not looking for that. I think that's very true. No, we are looking. I think the aspiration to be here, like when you ask, a woman, and I've done this, where do you want to be in 5 years versus when you ask a man, where do you want to be in 5 years? The answers are very, very different. It's like, I want to be the CEO of this company versus I would like to manage my team. So I think our aspirations and our goals, and that's combined with imposter syndrome, the training that we've had, the ambition that we've had.
It's many reasons. It's imposter syndrome. It's also like never, you can, when you are imagining yourself or when you're dreaming or when you are thinking of your goals, and if you haven't seen a woman in those roles,
100%,
you can't imagine yourself in it. The representation hasn't been there. If you haven't seen it, you won't dream it. You don't believe very, very that it's something that you can do as well.
And I really want some representation. I really want it. I think there's 2 times Mudassir asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So once when he was interviewing me and I said, in your seat, and he was taken back. And the second time he asked me, I look at all these Indian women that are CEOs or COOs of Fortune 500 companies. There's no let alone a woman, there's no man Pakistani, right? So I was like, maybe one day if I could do that. But it seems so far-fetched. How will I get there? What will I have to do to get there? I'm in startups. The doubts keep coming in, but we don't have anyone there.
But maybe we will see you there, Fatma.
Maybe we will see you there.
No.
Know. Why did you say no? This is the no that comes up. I think you could be there a lot faster than me if you put your mind to it. You set up a business yourself. You have a following. You have me offended saying, why did I not get invited? Why haven't I been here? And you've done it at a much younger age than I have. and you have a husband and a kid. You've done it all. You know, what people
And,
that
Fatma,
criticize you, what will they say?
It's so weird because, like I know all the work that you've done. You're so successful in my eyes, mashallah. But, I was just like, oh, why would Fatma come on my podcast? Like,
do you see the imposter syndrome there? The imposter syndrome here?
Yeah.
I knew you before I knew your husband, and I still know your podcast, and I listen to your podcast a lot more than I listen to your husband's, because you've done this amazingly. Like, you've checkmarked all the tick boxes. What does your sass say to you? What is she disappointed in you about? You know what I mean? And wow, you got a son the first time around.
But
that's a joke.
No, but I get your point.
Do you see?
You're making a point.
Like, if people were to see you from the outside, they would think your life is perfect, which it never is. You think I tell people about my experience, right? And they're like, oh my God. I remember when I did the podcast with Muzammil, I made the mistake of reading the comments, right? So somebody called me entitled, somebody called me an army brat, like these army people go abroad, never knowing the struggle that we go through. And I think that most of the time, when we've lived through it, we block it, right? So I went through depression for 2 years. And when people saw me outside, they'd never believe it because that looked like the happiest point of my life. Between jobs in Dubai, I'd moved out of my parents' house saying, I'm old enough now, I will do this myself. I hurt the hell out of my father. I don't think he'll ever forgive me. I'm working for these past few years to make sure that he does. But my mother told me afterwards that he had sleepless nights because I decided that I wanted to move. I was such an awful kid at that point in time, but I thought I was grown up, right? And then I crawled back into their house. But I'd moved out and I'd walked out of a job because I didn't like it. And so I had to pay rent, right? So what did I do? I found out that in these clubs and stuff, you have girls that offer you cigarettes in exchange for other cigarettes or some other kind of promotion. I did promotions for a month to be able to make rent and do these things. In the US, before I got a job and before so you're allowed to work 1 year, right, on a visa before you have to get H-1B. But I wasn't able to get a job right away, and I didn't want to ask my parents for money. So I worked at Chili's, which is one of my favorite restaurants, as a waitress. And then I got fired because I fainted because it was so hot there. I fainted. And then I worked at a gym. There was a gym that was an all-ladies gym. I was pretty fit then. I used to play rugby and ride horses. I'm still fit. Just because I'm a bigger size doesn't mean I'm not fit. And that's another myth that we have to destroy. Like, you don't have to be razor thin to be fit. I can lift more than guys in terms of weight. But again, this is not appreciated. A certain body type, a certain type of hair, a certain type of color is appreciated. How difficult is it for women, right? You have to play a sport. So I play sports. 7 days I have to play sports with some trouble. I don't know if I can say it on camera, but you have to.
Yeah, this is
you have to. What we go through then, I can't tell my polo team members, hey, I can't come to play today. I'm kind of PMSing here. I'm in pain. You gotta play. There's so many things. I mean, you have beautiful hair. If it was cut short, will this still think it's beautiful?
Actually, I was just gonna go towards body positivity because that's something you feel strongly about as well, and sports. These are the two things you can see. There's circle here. These are two things that I want to talk to you about now. And I think body positivity is something that I think you felt more strongly about once you moved to Pakistan because you were made to feel a certain way.
Yes. Yeah. So I came from the US where I had to walk everywhere. And before that I was in Dubai, so I played all sorts of sports. There's league sports there and everything. And I came to the US in 2019. I was eating home cooked food after 17 years because in Dubai I never used to eat at home. Maybe one meal in a week or so, I was eating out. And so I started getting Pakistani food. There was no exercise and I ballooned, and then Corona hit and there was nothing for anyone to do. And I went from a very normal 4 size to like a 10, 12, 13, 14 size. And everyone that would see me would be like, "Kitni moti ho gayi ho, kitni moti." I mean, recently I just went to, I was sitting with friend of mine. And she said, oh, look at that girl. She's lost so much weight. And I was like, yeah, that's really, really good. We should ask her how. And she's like, and you and I are, still fat. And I looked at her and I said, I'm not fat. You might think you're fat. I'm not. And I said, what defines fat? And she just looked at me weird because usually I agree with her. But what is fat? Right? I think that my body fat percentage is on the higher side and I should control it. But how do you know that what's on me right now is not muscle? Or how do you know I'm not on some medication that's making me fat? But her saying it, it's never bothered me before. It really bothered me. And this was just 2 days ago. And I told a few people and I think I told her off and I feel bad about it. But I said, look, please don't call me fat. And it's in, why are we defined by, why don't you come to me and say, hey, by the way, well played in the polo game. And honestly speaking, you're really doing well in your career. No. There are some people that'll come to my house and say, oh my God, your hair looks amazing today. Other people, I had long hair up till here, till about 2 weeks ago, and I cut it. It was really bothering me. I couldn't style it. I couldn't keep it. It was too hot. And it was dead hair because unfortunately I colored it, which I shouldn't have. So I cut it and people had an opinion about that. I don't know why we have so much opinion about other people's appearance and not about who they are as a person or how kind they are. Because that doesn't matter. And I think there is, in Lahore especially, people have a right to say anything to anyone. And how they speak to maybe waiters and how, I left COLABS, I came back after a while, and the people that came to say hi to me were the valets and the butlers there. And they're like, oh, we really miss you. It was so nice when you were here because we have valets and butlers there. And I get really, I get along with them. At KeepTruckin, who do I keep in touch with? The admin team. They were amazing to me, so I'm really good friends with them. And at Careem, who do I keep in touch with? Mostly like the juniors. And till this year, one of our investors at COLABS got a Careem, and the guy told her Fatima Mazhar works there. And he said, how do you know? And he said, oh, I follow her because she hired me as a Careem captain way back then. And so, how you treat people should be a lot more valuable than what you look like.
And how long or short your hair is? It is straight? Is it curly? Are you thin? Are you fat? Are you dark? Are you white?
Okay, so I have this skin spot. They used to be a lot bigger. When I came here, I got attacked by melasma. Now, as you know, melasma has no treatment. And people were like, this is because you're in the sun. This is because you play sports. This is because this. All sorts of opinions on how to get it fixed. And to a point where I was really embarrassed to fit, and I show it proudly, because it is proudly.
But do you think that this was not something that you felt outside of this country?
I didn't feel it outside of this country.
So this is more our problem.
This is our problem towards our women, and men don't get it that bad. I know a lot of men who've ballooned in this time, and except for my mother, why don't we say it to men? Why can men have a certain body and be okay, and why do women have to have that certain body? And forget everyone else. Why do we put the pressure on ourselves to have that body?
We do that, yes, for sure. And it gets to you, and it starts affecting your self-esteem as well. Like, it's the sad part of this entire thing is that I can say this for myself even, कि मैं जो भी कर लूँ या मैंने जो भी कर लिया है, somewhere down the line मेरा weight या मेरे parents उस पर कोई comment कर दे या कुछ हो जाए तो वो मेरी self worth से थोड़ा सा ना chip off करता है, जो कि नहीं करना चाहिए.
You're absolutely stunning.
No, but why would I reduce my own self worth to my appearance? It shouldn't be.
It should not be. It shouldn't be, and it shouldn't have to be that. Part of me does not like the fact that I did my hair and put on makeup to come here, but I was told by more than a few people that they loved the podcast, but I could have looked better in it.
So the Muzammil's podcast. Okay.
And now it's made me very self-conscious of who I am. And I talk with my hands. My hands are out here now because they said your hands were very distracting. I do have a habit of touching my hair a lot. It's just the way we are. And then I was told this, right? So I think that that shouldn't matter. Shouldn't the content of what we're talking about matter more? And I think that my worst thing is 10, 20, 30 people can tell me that this was good. And if one person tells me, I'll fixate on that, which I think was the point that you were getting to as well.
Yeah, like that's what we do now. Like there's so much more, but and people comment these things as well. Like, you know, मतलब मेरी बहुत सारी podcasts हैं and people have commented things around, you know, the way that I'm looking, or my hair wasn't done properly, या you know,
You
इस तरह
as
की
well?
चीज़ें. Yeah, so it वही बात है कि ये सारी चीज़ें, things you people said to you when you did your podcast. So you know, I get to hear a lot of these things as well. I also touch my hair a lot. You must have noticed.
But it's something
people,
that we do.
Yeah, and people pointed out that a lot as well in the comments. Ki, you know, Hamna, you touch your hair a lot. And
if I had gorgeous hair like you, I'd be touching it every day as well, all the time.
Yeah,
Too bad you don't have good
Fatma,
hair.
if you think about it, the reason that I touch my hair is a lot because I'm always trying to fix it, because if it's not fixed, they're going to point that out. Do you understand? And then
Yes.
I'm fixing it because if it's not fixed, they're going to point that out. And then when I'm fixing it, it's like, why are you touching your hair all the time?
Do you think if Muzammil was told your hair doesn't look good, he'd change it for the podcast?
No.
If he was told we didn't like what you were wearing, he'd change it?
No, I don't think so.
So why are we like this? Again, is it them telling us or is it us? You know, men can comment on men and women can comment on men and they would not care. Is it really a men versus women problem? Is it women versus women in your head problem? And that's what we need to understand.
Yeah.
I think if we were to say, okay, this is who we are, this is how we look, our imperfections are beautiful here, the whole world can see it, then the beauty industry wouldn't work as much, or these cosmetics wouldn't sell that much, or these salons that take half my money won't work that much because I'm always there trying to get my hair done. It's very unruly. But it starts from us. Maybe it starts from you and me saying the next podcast that we're on, our hair will not be done and we will not have makeup on, which is making me very uncomfortable anyway. Right? So self-deprecating behavior exists in a lot of us women. Imposter syndrome exists in us. And that manifests into us always hating ourselves, or the negative thoughts that are in your head are, you need to learn how to shut them.
Yeah.
Because I talk to some of my friends and they look at me and they're like, what do you have to be upset about? You're stunning. And I'm like, you're just saying that because you're my friend. Right? And that's what keeps coming.
But you're also white, na? That's also a thing in our culture.
I'm also apparently tall. So the only thing that's missing is for me to shed a few pounds.
And then people say that as well. Tum gori bhi ho, tum ye bhi ho, bas tum patli hoti na?
I went to...
Oh my God.
The list goes on, right?
Yeah.
So I think when we're talking about women, and it's not me, I don't think a man's ever even looked at what my weight is or what my... I think, except for my dad, who sometimes says, "Tum aaj moti lag rahi ho." But he's so fat himself, I'm like, look at yourself first. You know.
Yeah.
But essentially, that's what we need to change. And I don't know how it will change. I don't know how... I look at some women that come to work and I'm not judging them. By no means am I judging them. They've got a full face of beautiful makeup on. So sometimes I'm jealous that how do you know how to put on such beautiful makeup? But also it means they get up an hour earlier every day.
Yeah.
And I did ask some of them, how long does it take you to do your hair? How long? It's an hour and a half that they wake up early, right? I wake up an hour before work, but I go sweat it out at the gym and sometimes not even wash my hair and go to work after that, right? So it's preferences.
No, but it's preferences. And actually, I was going to say this abhi thodi der pehle when we were talking about the same thing. So I don't do my hair for every podcast. Like I don't do anything. I just brush it. That's all, and I come on.
Because you don't need to do much.
Come on set, and I look at my podcast, and a lot of times they're just looking like terrible, and. Some people would say, and I've even said this to me sometimes, maybe I should care about this a little bit more, and maybe I should, मतलब थोड़ा सा बना के आ जाया करूँ. It's not like कि मैं कभी भी नहीं आती. There are times I feel like it, so I do it, right? But if I don't feel like it, I don't do it, and mostly I don't do it. So, and then I look at myself and I'm like, हाँ कर ही लेती and stuff. But then see, I also, somewhere down there, I'm a bit rebellious. I'm an Aquarian. I don't...
Me too! That's why! What's your birth?
23rd January.
That's the birthday of my best friend forever. But mine is 15th Feb.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, so I never want to do what everybody's doing. Okay,
Yes.
it's just inside me. There's some kind of and I was like, okay, you know, I think I do want to set this example. Okay, ठीक है, it's okay that I don't do my hair every time, and that's okay.
I think that's beautiful.
You know, वो मेरे अंदर एक चीज़ है जो कि कभी कभार मैं अपने आप को कहती हूँ कि यार हम ना करना चाहिए यार, like proper होके आओ, ये क्या है? But then I'm just like कि क्या ज़रूरत है? Because again, I'd rather, like for me, I have to sit here and I have to have this conversation with this woman about her. This is about her. That's what I'm here for. Have that conversation. Be involved. I'd rather spend that time just, you know, gathering myself a bit, relaxing a bit, getting ready,
Yes.
you know, mentally more, be prepared for this, rather than spending my time, you know, getting all set up, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I could do both as well, get up a bit earlier than that, but it's just that, you know, if I don't feel like it, I don't want to do it out of the pressure कि मुझे करना चाहिए.
Yeah.
So इसलिए जिस दिन मेरा नहीं दिल चाहता मैं उस दिन नहीं करती, लेकिन जिस दिन मेरा दिल चाहता है I do it.
Yes.
But I don't want to do it because, you know,
The pressure is
because that's how it should be. That's the standard
yes.
set by society.
Yeah, so
that's
I
how
think
you should appear.
There are certain careers that demand it. I remember when I went to investment banking, they said, you know, you have to look proper every single day.
Yeah.
And I think I couldn't do it. I love startups because we go in jeans and a t-shirt. You know, there's a lot of times that I get heard, oh, there's no girl here, and I'd be like, I'm a girl, and they'd be like, nahi, tum to ladki nahi ho. And I think that they're giving me a compliment, but that really isn't a compliment.
No, it's not. Yeah, for sure.
And I think that I've been told by a lot of people that I get a lot of attention from guys, and it's never attention that you're thinking it is. It's always that I've grown up on sports. I used to love my dada and I used to watch cricket and I'm obsessed. You know how right now there's a match going on and when we've stopped, I've looked at the score. I'm obsessed. I've always played a sport. There's never been a time in my life that I haven't picked up a sport. So that means most of the time. So in Quetta, I was part of the cricket team, which was all boys. I was so good that all the boys gave their, you know, they went in and gave trials and I gave trials and I got selected to be in the best 11. I play polo in Pakistan, which is, I think we have like 4 or 5 women players, but we don't have enough to make an all-girls team, so I play with men. So I've played cricket, I've played that. I've been around horses all my life, thanks to, you know, starting off in the army. Yeah. And then I've also played volleyball and I've also played rugby. So I've naturally spent a lot of time around men and I, you know, talk like them. I watch sports. I'm obsessed with watching any kind of sports. So them saying that you're one of us means that girls are not associated with sports.
Sports is not for women.
Sports is not. So the number of times I've been told I'm very vocal about, my Twitter is only for cricket. And I'm very vocal about cricket there. The number of times people said, this one guy really ticked me off. I don't talk to trolls, but he said, oh, auntie, Babar Azam pe crush hai na, to wo kar lo. And I loaded him with data and stats on Babar Azam versus, you know, whatever and whatever. But most of the time, when I'm talking about cricket or any sport, I'm not taken seriously because how can a woman know about sports? You know, as recently as 2 years ago, my dad was saying, "Acha, sari fielding to batao na. Ye just pure ground mein fielding hai, ye to batao na." I'm not saying that he's misogynistic or sexist, God forbid. He has supported me in being able to travel the world and stuff. But I think that which era he comes from, cricket's not a big deal for women. Sometimes my brother will do it as well. So I tell him I really like Messi versus Ronaldo, and he's like, oh, you've only watched Barcelona. And I said I can like him as an athlete for what he represents. So I don't tell a lot of people this, but I started praying tahajjud about a year ago.
Achha.
And it was because I was listening to Rizwan speak and I was looking at his passion for Islam as well as cricket and seeing how he spoke about it. And so just because I followed a cricketer and I was looking at his stats and he prayed, I started praying, and I started praying tahajjud as well because of him, and that's changed a lot of things in my life. I was listening recently. I'm a big fan of Virat Kohli. It gets me in a lot of trouble because they say, "Oh, you're sucking up to the Indians." Why would I?
No, but he's such an incredible player. Yeah.
I don't even like his cricket game. I just like the
him.
fitness that he has and how he's transformed himself. His journey has been incredible, and what he does as a workout, what weights is he lifting, and how does he stay so fit? I mean, he's vegan, so I could never do that. I don't think I could live without meat ever. But just different athletes. Look, what's the population of India? 1 billion? And he's like the number one. So how many would have he had to go through to be that special athlete, and what gets them there, what drives them? So I think sports can teach us a lot, and we can learn a lot, and it gives you a certain kind of discipline where you have to get uncomfortable because you either have to practice, you either have to run, you have to either have to do this, and then your life gets a little bit more interesting. So I do a lot of sports analogies. When I'm talking to my team, I'm talking about how, like, you know, sports inspires you to do this, and I really make sure that somebody that I'm hiring has a hobby outside of work, because that means that they're passionate about something, so they'll make time for that and make time for work. So that's what I do. That was a really long. This wasn't good. You'll do something good.
I think that was a very interesting conversation, Fatma.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there was a lot of learning and insight.
I think I got you a little emotional there.
Many times.
Yeah, I love it.
Many times, and it was...
you controlled yourself well, though, but I saw it.
Yeah, and it was very different. You know, your story is very different. I haven't had someone like you on my podcast before with all these themes in your life. And, you know, like pehle I mentioned that you came on Muzammil's podcast, and, you know, after Muzammil's podcast with you, he came and said, you know, she was an incredible woman. And, you know, he had a lot of wonderful things to say about you.
Really?
And then he said to
my
me...
My mind's believing it, but my heart's not.
No, he
Imposter.
did.
Imposter.
But he did. Like, you know, he said some wonderful things about you, and at the end of it, he said, you know, and she said, you know, your wife, she's doing such great work, and I know about your wife, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, because and like I said, because for me, when he spoke about you, and he said, you know, ये औरत इतना fit काम किया है, you know, so I was like, oh, ये कभी मेरी podcast पे नहीं आएगी. You know, I don't know why. I don't know why. It's for me, it's that maybe मेरे दिमाग में वही चीज़ है now when I think about it कि मैंने ये चीज़ क्यों सोची थी. वो probably इसी सोची थी कि मुझे, in my experiences have taught me, women who have made it, or women who are successful, they aren't very supportive of other women.
Oh my God, I've been wanting to come to your podcast for 2 years now.
I know, and then he told this to me. He said, Fatma to kab se keh rahi hai ki she's more interested in your podcast.
I am 100% interested.
And imagine कि because वही बात है कि my experiences have taught me that women don't really want, you know,
I want all the women that, so you're on my radar. You know, there's a girl, Sania, she's doing a podcast called Investing at 25. And she reached out to me, and I said, yes, right away. I've reached out, so a lot of women, when they've reached out to me, I've said, yes, look, if I can do a little bit as well, I'm not going to claim that I can do a lot, because honestly, time and restrictions. So when you make a big claim like that, but in the background as much as I can, because there's two ways you can do it. If you've never had support, you can be like, I never had support, I'm not going to do it. I think the opposite way, because I've never had women support me, I want to go out of my way to support women, because it's not fair. And if we don't uplift each other, who's going to be?
This is the same for me, you know. I felt the same way. That's why I do this. But I also continue to believe that other women don't think like this. So, you know, that's why I assume that a lot of these women would never want to come sit with me, you know, they'd rather sit on a guy's podcast because, you know, they're taken more seriously.
Your podcast has been on my radar for such a long time. And I think that you are incredible. And I think that I see a little bit of my negative thoughts inside your head as well, and you really have to stop them, because I really was sad that I was not invited to. I'm not even joking. I thought that I wasn't good enough to be on your
No,
podcast.
I thought,
No,
why would
seriously,
you ever? And there's so many other women who think about like this, कि यार ये मेरी podcast पे क्यों आएंगी? You know, I'm too small for them.
You're
वो
not
वाली
smaller
चीज़.
as well. And I think that you should really, really... I knew your husband as Hamna's husband. You have to remember that. And so, you know, when I was told... I was really excited. I was like, and you know what they said was, okay, we'll connect you to Hamna. And that never happened after that. And I was like, okay. I was this close to reaching out to you, to you by myself. And as we're speaking, you know, I'm thinking, with Muzammil, I never thought if I did a good job. I'm just constantly thinking that, am I doing a good enough job? Because I want you to be proud of me. So, look, there are women out there. If I will get you in touch with Shamsa. She's in Karachi, but if you speak to... She's one of the smartest people I know. And she's so good. But she's also had an experience where women have been like very difficult towards her because she's that good naturally. So I think there's a lot of women out there. And I think like any woman that you want to speak to that you think should be on your podcast, if I know her, I will send her here.
Okay.
Or I will reach out to her. Please just let me know. I'm also... going to help Muzammil with some people that I really think should be on his podcast. But first you.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
and
likewise.
I hope that I didn't bore you.
No.
That's what my mind is saying. But this is important to think, right? Like I'm constantly overthinking now that I should have answered that way or answered that way. But I was really honest and as honest as I could be.
It was a very raw conversation. That's why I
open.
loved it.
Yeah.
I felt like I was, you know, we were connecting and we were
I think we were
exchanging
connecting.
and yeah. So
I liked when you told me your stories as well. That made me feel really good. I think it wasn't a one-sided conversation.
yeah.
And you're a good listener because I was rambling sometimes. You didn't cut me off.
No, thank you. It was very engaging. It was very interesting. I got, you know, everything I wanted to get out of you.
Excellent.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Happy Chirp. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you liked it. I'm sure there was a lot of learning for you in this as well. Please don't forget to leave a comment, your thoughts about the things that we discussed. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Allah Hafiz.